Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second day of our Earth Week. I'm Rob Peo, and I'm with Denver Urban Gardens. There you go. I'm with Denver Urban Gardens, and I'm so glad to see you all. Just want to welcome our presenters, our panelists here. I'm going to share my screen just very briefly. We have a great lineup of presenters here. Si usted necesita un intérprete, háganos, oh, I prepared myself for this. Luz, you're gonna have to help me out. Háganos saber escribiendo en el chat. Okay, I'm done with the Spanish. I'm learning though. So if you need help with interpretation, let us know and type in the chat. We have our lovely panelists here, and we also have our lovely Jungle Judy Elliott, who's going to start us out. So I'm going to stop sharing here and have Judy just open up with a few comments there. Judy, if you want to unmute yourself, and welcome, Judy.
I really want to welcome everybody here to our panel on soils and composting. And this is really personal for me. Because soils, as most people know, are the whole basis of not only growing food, but growing healthy community. And when we're growing in community and we're using compost, even if you're not growing your own food, you are contributing to a decreasing, the decreasing efforts of climate warming. You're helping to increase biodiversity, you're decreasing water pollution, and you're really, really helping to make smaller steps for a healthy planet. So with that, I want to celebrate our Earth Week by welcoming our wonderful panelists here who are going to discuss everything from a city perspective, through a community garden perspective, to worm composting, to a producer site. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob, who's going to then introduce our lovely panelists.
Yeah, that's right. Let's start off with Tay. I'll have each of our panelists introduce themselves. Tay, go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Tay Dunkley, and I am a program administrator for the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency with the City and County of Denver. Happy to be here.
And Luz, if you could come on.
Hi everyone, my name is Luz Krogan, and I am a Doug Master Composter. Hola, buenas tardes, mi nombre es Luz Krogan y soy un voluntario con el programa de Doug y soy una persona que entrena a los demás sobre el compostaje.
Thank you, Luz. And Sue, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sue Matheson, and I was a Denver Master Composter in 2016, and I'm currently now the community or the garden leader at Samuel's Community Garden.
Lovely. And last but not least, Clinton.
Hey everybody, my name is Clinton Sander. I am the marketing manager for A1 Organics, and we're one of the largest organic recyclers here in the state.
Wonderful. All right, well, we'll get started. Tay's going to start us off with some overview on composting. Tay, go ahead.
Alrighty, just sharing my screen here.
Yeah, and while she's sharing her screen, I encourage everybody, there's the Q&A and the chat. If you have questions, please type into the Q&A there. And we also have the chat for discussion. And so please type in your questions. And again, if you need help with interpretation or translation, Laura on our staff is there to help you out as well. Go ahead, Tay.
All right. Well, hello again, everybody. Again, my name is Tay, and I work with the city's Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency, and I focus a lot on composting. So I'm going to try and tee up sort of the city perspective on composting for the rest of this discussion, and I might kind of defer some topics to the other fantastic panelists on this call if that happens. So just bear with me. So I wanted to start by showing a photo of the actual material collected in the city and county of Denver. So this is located out at our Cherry Creek recycling drop-off in our transfer station. And I think it illustrates partially kind of the scale at which composting is done at the city. And it's just really the tip of the iceberg. So hopefully everyone can sort of relate to the material depicted on the screen right now. This looks familiar. It's materials from your backyard. It's material from your home kitchen, and it is piled high. And I think it illustrates that composting is only becoming more important for us to build into our management of our waste stream. And also it's growing. This pile literally is growing all the time. Denver continues to collect more and more compostable materials for the composting project each and every year. And just as a quick, I know that 2020 wasn't normal by any stretch of the imagination, but we did see, the city saw an increase of 30% over 2019's compost number. So that's just kind of a fun fact. And then just before diving straight in, I wanted to clarify some of the terminology, and we'll continue to clarify this as we go, but we use the word compost to describe a lot of different things. And so what you see on the left of the screen is compostable materials that we put into the composting process. On the right side, we see nearly finished compost. And we might also refer to items on the right side, so that almost finished compost, as a soil amendment. So that's how we're building soil. And on the flip side, what you see on the left side, we might refer to as organic material. And by that, we really mean that it was just once living. So I think it's helpful to kind of get that all out in the open before starting this conversation about composting and soil. And then I just want to mention yesterday's presentation too. And I think it was just such a good and fantastic setup for our conversation on composting, in that if we're talking about food materials or what we call food waste, there are a lot of strategies that can actually reduce food waste and get food into the hands of people before we even get to the conversation about composting. So yesterday, several really fantastic organizations and people were talking about that. So I would definitely recommend revisiting that conversation if you want to learn more about all of the work that's done before we get to the process of composting. And at the city scale, I want to give just a quick snapshot of residential waste in Denver. And so this is a very quick 101 on how Denver manages its residential waste stream. So first off, Denver Solid Waste Management operates programs that collect, in 2019, collected 226,000 tons of material from Denver homes. And those homes are largely single family homes up to and including 7 units. So if you see these carts, the green compost cart, the purple recycling cart, and that black trash cart, that tells you that that area is serviced by Denver Solid Waste Management. And within those programs included are the Denver Recycles program, the Denver Compost program, and a lot of other seasonal and special programs that help Denver manage organic materials such as leaf drop and tree cycle. And then Denver Solid Waste Management also, which is a program of the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, they also oversee the Cherry Creek recycling drop-off. And I want to quickly mention also that the city has partnered with Denver Urban Gardens for many years, actually a couple of decades rather, on backyard composting education. So I've had the pleasure to work with Jungle Judy for a number of years now on programming and outreach that others are going to talk about today. But I just wanted to throw in there that it's been a very, it's a great partnership that we have with Denver Urban Gardens. And it's part of the suite of options available to Denver residents. So to quickly make sure everyone's paying attention, I wanted to ask folks a question about their knowledge around Denver's residential diversion rate. So this is a question of, what is Denver's recycling rate currently, or as of 2020? So we've got some options here, and I think Rob is gonna queue up a fancy Zoom poll for everybody.
Yes, we got our fancy pants Zoom poll. So I'm going to launch the poll. What is Denver's residential diversion rate for 2020? So pick your guess of what you think it is. We've got some questions coming in the Q&A. Virginia, you got some good questions. I've got you. We'll catch up on your questions, but keep those questions coming in, and we'll pop those in when the time is right. Okay, last chance to vote. All right, I'm going to end the poll, and let's see what we've got. We've got, your guess is as good as ours there, Tay. We've got 25% is what most people were thinking. What's the answer?
All right, well, I would say people have been reading up on their annual reports from the Denver Recycles program, would be my guess. That is correct. Let's see if we can get the, oh, okay. Not sure where the next, oh, there it is. Okay.
There you go.
So that is the correct answer. The residential diversion rate as of 2020 was 24.9. So we call that 25%. And as you can see here, our goal is actually to be at 34%. That's the national average. And so we're making some incremental improvements and increase, but we're not quite there yet. But that's related to this conversation. So I wanted to ask quickly another question. Approximately what percent of Denver's, let's see, sorry, moving this out of the way. What percentage of Denver's trash is organic material? And so by this, we mean once living, potentially compostable material that's in our trash stream, even after all of the recycling and composting that we already do.
All right, so the poll is up. Is it 10%, 30, 50, or 70%? See, I can see the polls right now. I can make all this kind of music. Just,
much appreciated.
Just to entertain myself, because you can't see it. But all right, we're closing the poll, and let's see what most people think. I think people are thinking about 50%. What do you think?
Yeah,
Faye?
I'm seeing that too, and people have done their homework, done their reading. That is the correct answer. So approximately 50% of if you were to look at a trash cart that averaged all of Denver's trash carts, about 50% of the material in that trash cart is potentially compostable. And so I think this image really illustrates that this is a really important area for us to focus, and hopefully kind of helps set up this conversation. So last poll, just wanted to quickly, obviously there's no right answer here, but wanted to see what folks on the call are actively doing as far as composting goes. Okay,
so what's everybody up to when it comes to composting? And while people are voting, Dan has a question. Are there plans for Denver to expand its compost collection program for residents? What's the latest on that, Tay?
So I'm going to drill down on the Denver Compost Program, kind of the snapshot in the near view future. But yes, it is definitely a strategy that we're exploring to keep ramping that program up.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's great news. And Jan is asking, if we aren't in Denver, how do we get communities to offer organic recycling? Any suggestions on that?
Yeah, so a question I sometimes ask is if anyone is from Denver or not, but I think talking to your local elected officials is a great way to kind of get a foot in the door for conversations around composting. I'm also going to share just a few resources that can not so much get you citywide or community-wide programs, but just ways to compost, even if you don't live in Denver. And I'll talk about that just in a few moments here.
Great. And here are our results. People are across the board. Some people are composting through the program, through their own backyards.
Fantastic.
Very good. All right. Oh.
All right. Okay, so we've got, quite the spread of folks, and some that are not yet composting. So glad to see that too. So, okay, so this is just a quick visual, and I'm gonna run through it kind of quick, but we strongly believe that there is really a way for anyone and everyone to compost in Denver, whether it's through the Denver Compost Program, or if you're a Denver resident, you can participate in either the compost program if your home is eligible. Any Denver resident can use the Cherry Creek Recycling Drop-Off, but anyone and everyone in Denver can access these other forms of composting. We're going to hear more about backyard composting and vermicomposting a little bit later, but what we call apartment composting is also just a catch-all for all the other fantastic organizations that are out there that you can hire to collect materials from your home. So just to list a couple of them that operate in Denver and in the metro area, there's Scraps, Denver Compost Collective, Colorado Compost, Wampost, Rocky Mountain Composting. And so even if you don't live in Denver, these are great resources to check into. So definitely wanted to throw those in there. And just as the high level summary of the Denver Compost Program, it's been in a constant state of growth really since it started back in 2008, transitioned from a pilot program to a established program. There is a fee for the service. It's $9.75 per month billed quarterly. And I can confirm that all of our materials that we collect in this program that you saw on that first slide, these are all sent on to A1 Organics. And you're going to hear more from Clinton a little bit later about how that compost is actually, how our compostable materials are turned into finished compost. And we have a great partnership with A1 and with Ace Hardware, where you can actually purchase compost made from the Denver Compost Collection Program at participating Ace Hardware stores. And that is, one of the primary ways where you can bring that organic material back to your soil and really build soil through the composting process. And just a quick plug, because this is 2 weeks away, a great opportunity to get the finished compost. While you can buy bags of Denver's own Eco-Grow compost at Ace Hardware stores all the time, we're doing a sale, a big one-day sale, where we're giving away free mulch to Denver residents at various city locations. And then we are also directing people to Ace Hardware stores and A1 Organic locations to receive discounts on finished compost, whether it's bagged or bulk. So really, a lot more detail is included online. So you can scan the QR code to get that. And this is kind of an experiment. I want to just try playing a quick, this is a 30 or 60-second video. See if this works for everyone. Can we hear that okay?
Did you click on the audio option when you shared? We're not hearing the audio.
Okay, it's okay if it's not on audio. This hopefully just gives a visual of the process and where compostable material goes. So setting you up for the conversation with Clinton a little later on. So hopefully that was fun to see, like the path that compostable material takes through the community. I know there is no sound to that, but I can share the full video with folks if they want to view it. And I think it's helpful to get a visual on where things are going. But we could talk at length on the benefits of compost, and I think others are going to touch on this. So I want to just cruise through some of these benefits, and we can always come back to them if we've got the time. But the compost is really, really key for both the benefits of keeping compostable material out of the landfill is a huge area that provides a lot of benefit, but then also putting the compost back into the soil is the other major piece here. And I want to point folks towards a few of the resources. The Denver Recycles website is full of resources, including the guides on exactly what is acceptable in the Denver compost program and what's not. We've got a little waste sorting game where you can select between Denver compost and backyard compost, make sure you're sorting things correctly. That's a trick question up there on the screen right now. You could put leaves in either. And then we have a recycling directory where you can also find all this information. And this is sort of like the next, what's going on beyond today. And I think one of the areas, so Denver's working on finalizing a 2020 solid waste master plan, even though it is 2021 already, but that'll kind of give us the roadmap for where that program goes and where other policies will take composting in the city of Denver. And I'd be happy to chat more about that a little bit later on, but I don't want to take any more time from others.
Thanks, Tay. If you would be so kind as we're going to, when you have a chance to type in the chat the list of composting companies that you talked about in the chat there.
Absolutely.
And then I have one question. You can decide whether you want to field this or not, but where did it go? Here, Melanie wants to ask about, she works with a school, and I don't know, Sue or Luce, you may want to field this one. She works at a school, or she works at a school, and she wants to know how to get their compost picked up in Denver. So we'll put that on the table for you all. But Tay, thank you so much. We're going to move over to Luce, one of our master gardeners, master composters, excuse me. Luce, do you want to just open up? You've been busy this morning, right? What have you been up to?
So as many of you know, we're celebrating Earth Day this week. And I partnered with my local preschool to come into the classroom and teach 3, 4, and 5-year-olds about composting. And so I was grateful for the opportunity to get back into schools and volunteer and share the wealth of knowledge that Doug has bestowed upon me to spread about our community. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to get in the classroom, teach kiddos about the different ingredients, if you will, that are needed to compost properly, and then also invite them to take part in setting up a compost bin for vermicomposting, which is worm composting. And again, it was just a wonderful experience. And if I can, I'm just gonna maybe touch a little bit more about vermicomposting and what it is. Mm-hmm. So we've probably have heard or are a little bit familiar with what backyard composting is. And you can either use a bin or just use a free pile. But there is also a different option that's available for folks that maybe would like to compost at work in an office, or are living in an apartment, or again, for school-age children, this is a great option. I think Judy is showing us some worms there that she has from her vermicompost box.
But Judy's attempting to pick them up and not throw them on the computer keyboard. This is worm compost. And these are red wiggler worms, and they live in a bedding of newspaper, recycled newspaper, and fall leaves, and make this wonderful rich soil amendment that Luce has been teaching about. So tell us a little bit more about your work with the little guys, Luce.
Sure. So I actually have a 3- and a 4-year-old. I'm a mother of 4, and I got into composting through Doug just because I was hoping to, in the future, start a garden. And I've just fallen in love with all the benefits that come with composting. But for vermicomposting in particular, it takes up a very small space in your home, which is convenient. You can do it year round, so it doesn't matter that it's snowing outside or it's freezing cold. And you don't need really a garden, and the whole family can participate. I know that Tay touched briefly on the panel discussion that we had yesterday. And one thing that really stood out to me was that a head of lettuce in a landfill could take up to 25 years to decompose.
Mhm.
And that was just mind-boggling to me, to have a 3 and a 4-year-old and to think that by the time they're 30, that same head of lettuce could potentially still be around is just not acceptable. You know, we each need to be responsible for taking care of our organic waste that we have. And vermicomposting allows you another option to do that at home. You know, you can order your worms online. They're about 20 bucks. You can get a container, either a wood box, a plastic box. You drill holes to, you know, allow the worms to breathe. You provide them with bedding, like Judy showed us, basically newspaper and your leaves from the fall. We collect all of our leaves in an ACE paper bag that they actually donate. You can pick them up for free with a coupon. And we fill up our bags of leaves every fall, and we keep them throughout the year. We use them in our backyard composting as well as for our worm box. And about once a week, I go in there, I freshen up their bedding. I provide them 2 or 3 cups of organic food scraps that we have just from our kitchen. And lo and behold, they take care of decomposing it for us. And what you have after they decompose the food for us, well, they consume it, and then you're left with the worm casings, and it's organic compost. You can use it in your garden, you can use it on your grass, in your flower bed. And it's a wonderful opportunity to close that loop with your family, as far as having the opportunity to see, okay, we have a finished product, we have our scraps, we put it through the composting cycle, then we're given the compost that we use in our garden that we use to grow our vegetables again in the summer. So it's just been a wonderful opportunity for our family to just grow, and I look forward to continuing to spread the knowledge that I've gained with classroom children. I've done work across Denver as well. I did a Spanish class at Globeville Community Garden, and again, very beneficial. Please, if you have any interest of learning the process, the steps, the tools, Doug has their class offerings online, and they're free. So please make sure to look one up and get educated.
So Luz,
That's great, Luz.
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Now, you're describing using newspaper and fall leaves. Are you telling our audience that you're doing composting inside your house? and you're putting food that might be moldy inside? And what about the odors? And are the worms going to crawl out? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, those are great questions, Judy. So the box that I described that you can use for vermicomposting does require a lid. Not only does that help keep the worms inside your box, because these creepy crawlers, they're red wigglers, they do like to get out. So you definitely want to keep your lid on. That also keeps the fruit flies away. You do drill holes on the sides and on the bottom just to, again, let the air circulate inside of the box. However, there aren't any odors. You take your 2 to 3 cups of food scraps that you collected for, the past week, and you make sure they're in cube sizes because worms don't have any teeth. So, give them a helping hand, and in consuming your food scraps, you apply your food scraps into your box. You maybe bury them a little bit, about a 1 inch underneath the top, and there aren't any odors. There aren't any bugs. The worms take care of the process. You're basically just setting up Mother Nature to take its course. So instead of spending resources, fuel on our environment, water, to get our trash, which to Tay's point, 50% is organic matter, all the way to the landfill that could be around, for decades to come. We can take care of it here in our homes. And in a matter of 2 to 3 months, it's gone. And what you have left is this gold that you can add to your garden, to you know, any of your house plants, and it helps. It helps the health of your plants. It helps the environment. It helps your family learn. If you want your kids to learn to eat their vegetables, have them grow their own. And I guarantee you, they will not throw away another carrot or pea or Brussels sprout, broccoli, you name it. They have learned, you know, the value of the effort and the dedication that it takes to grow the food that we eat. And also, you know, what it takes to get rid of our waste that's left over. So
that's
Whoa.
great, Luz. You know, it's clear that you're very passionate about this, that you've learned your stuff as a master composter, and just that notion of connecting kids to the food that they eat and to eat more nutritious food. That's really great. And part of the agreement as a master composter is to go out to teach other people to do programs. Doug has, as you mentioned, programs to teach people how to compost. And Luz, we're so excited for you that you've learned this and are passing it on and are a part of the Doug community. So thanks for what you're doing. I'm going to pass it over to Sue. Sue, you're in a larger garden. Why don't we back up a little bit? How did you become a master composter?
So I've been very passionate about recycling my entire life. Back in 1990, there was a big resurgence of Earth Day, and I was in high school then. I guess that says how old I am, but we did a big Earth Day celebration in North Glen, Colorado for that year, and I've always been really interested in recycling. So when the Denver Recycle sends out the email every week saying, hey, this is what, trash or compost or recycling is picked up this week, there was a little blurb about, hey, become a master composter. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is the ultimate recycling, right? Like, we're taking food and stuff that we don't eat, plant scraps, and we're turning it back into organic material that we can then use to feed more plants. And I thought that was just fantastic. So I joined the program, and the very first class that I taught was actually at Samuel's Community Garden. And I chose it because it was close to my house. I didn't even know there was a garden there. I show up, we go kind of dig through some pile of organic material that they were calling their compost pile. And we talked about how compost works. I mean, Luz brought up a very good point that what we're doing with composting is basically just speeding up what Mother Nature already does, right? You put the stuff on the ground, it'll decompose, it'll turn back into its organic components naturally. But we're just hurrying it up a little bit because in a community garden, there's a lot of material we got to get through. But the woman who was running, Palace, who was running the garden at the time, she called me up and said, hey, do you want a plot? I'm like, oh, I hadn't really I hadn't thought about gardening. I was really thinking more about composting. And it's like, yeah, I'll garden. And then I ended up running the compost there. So now I'm actually running the whole garden because Palace is leaving to go on to other things. But the one thing that I've really thought that's really been interesting about composting in a community garden space is, well, there's quite a few things. One thing is that the process is a long process. Like, it goes on and on. You don't just build a compost pile and say, hey, we're done. You build a compost pile and then you check on it in a little bit and then you turn it around and then you sift out the good stuff and then you put some more in and then you keep going. And the first couple of years that I was working compost at Samuel's, everybody was super excited because we got some compost. And my opinion was that I didn't do a very good job because we didn't do it all year long. But that's the hard part about working in a community garden, is that there is a lot of material to get through, and it goes all year long. And the first year we tried to have, or the first couple of years, we tried to have like a compost team or a compost committee, and it worked out okay. We had a few people help. By the time it got to be August, everybody was kind of tired of like my 5 people were tired of composting and they wanted to do other things. So this year we're actually trying something new. I put on the compost, or on the calendar, every other Saturday, we are going to work our compost piles. In our garden, we have 55 plots. 40 of them belong to community gardeners and 15 belong to school. And we also donate to the food bank from those during the summer. So there's a lot of stuff grown in the garden and a lot of organic material. So usually by August is when we're ready to, I mean, that's when we could even be working it every single week because there's just so much. So we put it on the calendar. I am going to have everybody sign up for one Saturday. If everybody shows up to help once, I think that will help make the work a little easier. The other thing that we have done for the last few years is for our orientation. Every spring we have an orientation to, you know, make sure everybody knows the rules and how things work at the community garden. We also do a little compost class that day. So we go up to the garden, we dig through the compost, I show them how it works, we pull out a big handful of yummy finished compost, and then we just talk about what the process is. So yes, and Judy's showing right there the yummy finished compost. It smells so good and it feels so, you almost want to eat it. It's so
Yeah,
good.
we actually made this. We made this last year in the Master Composter program, and we didn't start this process until June. This was mid to late June.
Mm-hmm.
We used a 1/4-inch hardware cloth screen, so this is just screened material, landscape-based material. But this is just fabulous
Mm-hmm.
that the homeowner could get out of their own backyard knowing exactly what they put in. That's another reason to do your own.
Right, and in a community garden too. Like last fall, we got a load of compost. I'm not exactly sure where we got it from, but it had a dead chicken in it.
Oh,
We got a surprise chicken with our compost. You know, there's a little random stuff that ends up in there, but you know, when you make it yourself and then you do sift it through that hardware cloth, it's amazing stuff. And I think everybody in our garden has seen, the people who've been there for a while have seen the improvement in the soil by adding compost to it, and by using our own compost. Like, we know exactly what was going in it. I have a few people who bring up their kitchen scraps. We don't have too much of that, but there are a couple people who do, and that's fine. We have a few rules about what we put in our compost and what we don't. We keep all of our tomatoes out of the garden compost. Tomatoes are good at passing around diseases. They're hard to get rid of. So we make sure that we send all the tomatoes to Clinton over at A1. There are a few other things that are a little tougher. At the end of the year, we've got some big sunflowers. Those are kind of hard to chop up into pieces. So those, as much as we can, go in the green bin as well.
so the takeaway is really, you know, it's a process. It takes a lot of work. You know, both you and Luce have been talking about that. It's a process, but the payoff is really what we're looking at, and what kind of benefits we can get from the compost. I've got some questions here. People are asking some nuts and bolts questions.
Sure.
Luce, I'm going to put this to you, you know, and Judy can chime in as well. Where do you recommend getting worms locally? Luce, you have thoughts on that?
You know, Judy has given me a great resource and I cannot remember it. Judy, could you chime in and
So
share with us?
there is a local company called ABC Composting, and it's run by a lady known as Arlene Zaffel. She has recently purchased the company, and I believe she's selling just half pounds now, but you would need to show up. So I would Google abccomposting.com and connect with Arlene Zaffel. The old source through the mail is Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. And again, we're dealing with red wiggler worms. So in order to do worm boxes, we're not using night crawlers. They require a different soil environment with outdoor temperatures, cold temperatures, and they make deep tunnels. So for composting in worm boxes, inside red wiggler worms. They are fishing worms. These are bait worms for small quantities, less than 100 worms. I'm sure people could hit fishing stores for bait supplies during seasonal.
And then, thank you, Judy. And Andrea's saying, thanks, I've used Uncle Jim's in the past. They're great, but I'll check into ABC for a local option. That's great, Andrea. Glad we could help you out. Virginia has a couple of questions. She's been patient. I have limited space and I'm growing my garden in buckets. Do you recommend a specific type of soil for container gardening?
So regarding container gardening, if you're using buckets, I think that outdoor soil is not the way to go. So I would go with a raised bed soilless mix mixed in with a little bit of native soil for beneficial microorganisms, and definitely about 25% landscape-based compost mixed in with all of that.
Great.
So again, a soilless mix, 25% landscape-based compost, and just a couple handfuls of native soil to introduce beneficial microorganisms.
And here's another follow-up from Virginia. I'm having trouble getting my pH under 7. Any amendments that I can add with more acidic soil?
So again, our soil, our native soil here in Colorado is alkaline. It is 8 pH or above. Slow amounts. I wouldn't worry too much about getting it much below 7. 7 is neutral. You're not going to need to get it much below 7. What people in Denver or in Colorado need to realize is that things that we don't grow well are things like blueberries and rhododendrons that require a pH of 4 or 5. But for most garden crops, a pH of 7 or 8 is fine.
Great. Thanks, Judy. Always can count on you to answer composting questions, right? I'm going to shift the conversation over. Sue, thank you so much. Lots of good advice there. You've been working there for quite a while, and you know, it is a big garden to take that on and to work together in community on that. I'm going to pass the mic over to Clinton to talk about A1 and all the great work that they're doing. Clinton, I'll have you if you want to share your slides there.
Hello, everybody. Let me get there real quick.
Keep those questions coming in. Tay answered some of the resources there. I'll put those in the chat as well while Clinton is talking. It's all yours, Clinton.
All right, someone give me a thumbs up that looks right.
You're good, yeah.
All right, well, hey, everybody. Thank you to the guests, and thank you for letting me be a part of this. It's exciting, I love it. And thank you to Doug. Doug, Denver Urban Gardens has been an amazing partner for A1 for many, many, many years. And Judy has been also a wonderful person for the industry. So I just want to give her a call out. She knows Bob Yost, who is someone from A1 Organics that has been kind of a guru in the composting industry. And those two know each other quite well. So thank you, Judy. So yeah, A1 Organics, who are we? We are the largest commercial recycler, organics recycler in the state. We've been around for nearly 47 years. And we have 4 different locations across the Colorado Front Range, 2 organic recycling centers, so where you can bring green waste and that type of material to us. And then the other 2 in Eaton and Keensburg, Colorado are just what you think. They are commercial composting facilities. One is about 80 acres and the other one is about 425 acres. So those are big sites. And yes, we are commercial composters. So there's a lot you can do in your backyard, and there's a lot of great materials that you can break down and then reuse. But other materials, for example, tomatoes or meat products or liquids, yogurts, things like that, you need higher temperatures. You need a commercial facility to be able to do that. And that's what we do. That's where we fill in the gap. We can really do high volume, and we can help out a lot of people across the state. Just to give you an idea, 425,000 tons of material we recycle a year. 425,000 tons. So you got to take 425,000 times it by 2,000 to get the pounds. That is a lot of material. I love elephants, so I'm not going to give you an analogy or a kind of a comparison, but in 1 year, that's about 15,000 full-grown elephants cruising down Denver type of material. So just to give you like a perspective, like that's a lot. You could fill up Invesco Field. Well, I'm not sure what it's called now, but let's call it Invesco Field. You could fill that up at about 20 to 25 feet deep of material. So it's a lot, and we're really proud of that. And we're continually growing in volume and processing more and more. And again, we do about 30 million gallons of liquids. So that's anywhere from beer that's been left over on a floor to Noosa yogurt, for example. It could be an entire truck of beans that just didn't happen to make it to market. So it's a better choice. Send it to us. We appreciate that. We're a proud environmental leadership program. We've been a part of that for 6 years as a gold leader. We have been awarded as one of the leading composters in the country a few times. So yeah, next. So I just want to talk about, you guys all divert these materials, and A1 Organics could never get to that type of tonnage if it wasn't for all the commitments by cities, municipalities, residential homeowners, commercial landscapers, you name it. Everybody that's diverting these materials to us, we couldn't get to that number if it wasn't for those commitments made by every one of you. So what do you do with compost once we get it? Well, of course, we process it, turn it into an amazing soil amendment. And not only can it be brought back to a traditional garden or a residential home garden, but also it can be used for landscaping purposes as a top dresser across many, many Colorado yards. And it's a great choice versus artificial fertilizers, for example. Many, many Colorado golf courses use compost as a soil amendment. It's not just for the garden. But of course, Denver Urban Garden uses a lot of our compost across the city, and we're really proud to be the one that they choose to use, the Eco Grow compost, which is generated and created from all of the Denver residents' efforts of diverting these materials, and wonderful Tay Dunkley and her program, who has continued to grow it and divert these amazing materials to us. And again, I just want to throw in, I kind of wrote this down in my notes when I was listening to everybody, but like organic materials, a lot of people call this waste. They will say, this is waste. This is a waste. It's no good anymore. And I don't like that analogy. I think it's a natural resource. Organics is a natural resource that can be used over and over and over and over again. The whole reason why we call it a closed loop system, because organics are a closed loop system. Again, commercial gardeners, commercial across the board nurseries, everybody uses these amazing soil amendments to regrow these plants that you might just transfer into your garden. So that's where a lot of this compost is going. Again, I talked about turf professionals, top dressing at golf courses to save on water. Colorado needs water. We don't want to overuse water. So by increasing your soil nutrition, your soil health, you can reduce the amount of water you actually it's going to take to grow that grass and to keep it maintained. And that's all because of soil organic matter. And Judy could go on about this for days and days and days, I'm sure of it. But it's the power of compost. It's absolutely amazing. Again, agriculture across the board. We're seeing this more and more. We're getting into more and more people using hemp farmers, for example, are bringing compost back and putting it back down on our Colorado lands and rejuvenating our soils. Great opportunity, and it's great to see. Again, I wanted to throw this in here because a lot of people don't maybe think about compost and how it can be used for remediation of contaminated soils, or it can be used to actually landfills will bring compost back and use it for VOC and odor treatment at the landfill. There's a lot of more uses for this material, so continue to divert because it's a great resource for Colorado. And we need, if you're going to divert, we need you to bring it back. You got to bring it back and use it in our soils. That's where it needs to go. I just wanted to jump in and talk about one of our #1 challenges as a commercial composter is that, contamination. We deal with contamination on a daily, and it's a serious thing. It's a very challenge. It's very expensive for A1 Organics to manage these type of materials when there is contamination in them. So it's just important to remember, make sure everything's going in the right bin. And also if you see a green bin, I mean, make sure if you see someone put something in it that's not supposed to be in it, have a quick conversation, educate, just let them know, say, hey, that's plastic, it shouldn't be in there, and this is why. So yeah, we spend a lot of money every year to really work on trying to keep these materials out of the stream. And it shouldn't come to us in the first place. It needs to stay out of there. So fruit stickers is a great example. We will continue to take fruit. We've made the commitment as a company to really help and make sure that we can recycle these materials. But if we could just take those fruit stickers off of that fruit before it goes into that bin, that would be absolutely amazing, because they'll make it all the way into the finished compost. I put over here on the right side real quick. We do have organic recycling facilities in the Denver metro area, but these are specifically for green waste type materials, leaves, branches, grass, unstained treated wood, things of that nature. We don't accept food materials at those sites. Unfortunately, we're not permitted to do it, but we talked about a lot of haulers that there are all across the state. And please reach out to A1 Organics. We partner with a lot of these haulers, and we will be more than happy to get you names and numbers and addresses so that you can reach out to them to see if they will haul your compost for you. But A1 Organics is not a hauler. We just do what we do best, which is we will recycle the material. So next, contamination. Again, I want to talk about contamination. It's there. It's so hard to get out. If there's glass, for example, one glass bottle can turn into 1 million glass bottles in a split second if it's just shattered into the compost pile. And it takes a lot of effort for us to get out. So just keep it out. Just keep it out. Again, there was some questions that I think were fielded or we're about to be fielded about this, but compostability. You know, there's a lot of, you're seeing more and more and more things coming to the market, and they're saying they're compostable products that can go into the composting stream. And don't get me wrong, some of them do. Some of them are valuable products that do work, but a lot of them are considered, they call them biodegradable. And biodegradable is not compostable. Biodegradable just means it breaks down into smaller pieces, and that's it. It doesn't mean it's going to completely break down. So A1, again, has made the commitment to continue to work on, you know, recycling these very valuable materials. And I want to just introduce to you and everybody on the call is we partner with the Compost Manufacturing Alliance. Now they do field testing. Not only do they test, like we're talking about a compostable plate, not only is it tested in a lab to make sure it works, but then this company will take that plate, and the plate, whoever made it, will pay to say, okay, will it break down in the composting process in the state that's recycling it and composting it? And then they'll approve it and make sure that it actually works at our facility that you're diverting that material to. And there's hundreds and hundreds of these items that have been approved and tested to make sure, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to jump, to make sure that they work here at A1 Organics. And you can go on to the compostmanufacturingalliance.com and you can actually look up A1 Organics, and it'll list out all the wonderful products that you could choose that you know are going to break down at our facility. And that's where we're going, and that's where we need to be. So you can find this on our website as well. Please reach out if you have any questions, but that's what we'd like to see. Again, I wanted to just jump into quality. And there's a lot of, like, if you are doing your own backyard composting, you know exactly what's going in there. Well, we also talk about that as well, and that's with the STA certified compost program. This basically shows you can get analytical information on all of our products that we make, that we test monthly, and it'll show everything that you need to know that's in our compost. And then you guys can be the judge, and you can decide if you want to use that compost or not. It's basically very transparent, and it shows you everything and the quality of our compost. That's what I have to say for right now. And there's my contact information and anything else, our website. And yeah, open the floor to questions.
Quentin, thanks so much. How has the landscape changed, you know, in Denver just recently? Because I know this is, I mean, what have you seen that has been a significant game changer, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask for Denver.
Specifically when it comes to organics recycling? Well, Denver's support, Denver's support has been incredible, and their efforts, Tay's efforts and her program, their efforts to communicate to the public, their efforts to educate, their efforts to make sure that there's resources available for everybody to find out what's going on and how and what our best practices has really helped that part of the stream coming into A1 Organics. There has been a lot of success there, and that's what we need. We need more and more communication and more education and community outreach on, contamination, for example, or compostability, for example. So yeah, Denver's been an amazing partner in that, and we've seen an improvement from that stream. But again, Denver's one part of an entire state that is diverting organics to us. So if everybody did it like Denver, that would be great.
Well, we got a good start at least, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to thank all of our panelists today. We're getting near our time. And for all of you for staying on. We've got some really great questions. Our panelists are answering your questions as we're going along. I'm going to give the last word to Judy to sort of summarize for us very briefly. And if you can unmute yourself there, Judy, we'll have you have the last word.
So again, this wonderful Master Composter Training and Outreach Program that I'm privileged as Senior Education Specialist with Doug to have done for many years with the help of Denver Recycles. We will start offering public compost classes, free public compost classes beginning in June. So we'd encourage people, first of all, to get on our website, doug.org/compost, beginning in last of May, first part of June, and we will be offering compost classes. I also want to put in a blurb for people to join our gardening platform, Mighty Networks. If you just go into community.doug.org, we have a new platform, our soil and compost topics that will kind of alert you to everything going on. I also wanted to say, put in a big thank you to not only Tay, Luce, and Sue, and Clinton, but to realize that we all have such important parts to play. If you think about composting, sometimes it can seem like it's an overwhelming thing. By taking one banana peel at a time, one ornamental grass that you cut down and you chop up in small pieces. Mixed textures, mixed materials, you're not only keeping it out of the landfill, but you're allowing the soil to hold up to 50% more, because compost can hold up to 50% of its weight in water. You're decreasing your water bill potentially by 20% each month. You're allowing your plants to become deeply rooted where they're growing, eliminating or at least decreasing your use of pollution in the atmosphere by keeping commercial chemical fertilizers and pesticides out. And more importantly, you become active players in this whole role of what can I do to regenerate or restore the earth. So everybody, whether it's the little kids that Luce is dealing with in the preschools that are learning to pick up the worms and learning these wonderful ways that they could turn newspaper and leaves into this great creepy crawly rich soil, everybody has a role that's very easy to play, which doesn't cost very much and will allow you to contribute to promoting a balanced ecosystem. So I want to thank everybody so much for being with us along this journey. Everybody has a part to play.
Thanks, Judy. And yes, if you would be so kind to fill out our survey, I put the link on the chat there. We appreciate your feedback and how to make our sessions better. Again, thank you so much for spending your time with us. If you want to come tomorrow, we've got a great lineup of people that are focusing on youth education in the school garden. I will be there as well. And please tell everybody about it. As Judy mentioned, you can get involved with our community through our online community platform or to become a sustaining member. I want to thank my panelists, Tay, Luce, Sue, Clinton, and Judy, of course. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate all that you're doing and spreading the word about the value of composting. It's an important thing. I really appreciate all of you as well for attending, for participating. We want to thank SCFD for their support. And again, please join us next time and we'll say goodbye from Doug. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.